Order right now as it's 6:30. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the select board, respective town staff, those of you who may be joining via Zoom or those viewing from home on Facebook at Channel 22, hopefully under air conditioner. Welcome to the June 7th, 2021 Exeter Select Board meeting. As chair of the Exeter Select Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Public notice of this meeting was posted on the town website and on the bulletin board of the town offices at 10 Front Street on June 4th, 2021. As provided in that public notice, the public may access the meeting online and via phone. We remind everybody that the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done via roll call vote. I'll start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance of the select board. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting and who that person is, which is required under the right to know law. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf will not be able to attend this evening, so we'll have a four-person board with us. Selectman Brown, good evening.
Evening, I am here alone.
Thank you. Our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman, good evening.
Good evening, I am also alone.
And our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan.
Hi, everyone. Here by myself.
And I'm Nico Papakostandis, and I am also alone in the room. With us, our Town Manager, Mr. Russ Dean. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I'm in the office, and I am alone.
Okay. Our first order of business, as we talked about in our last meeting, is to go into non-public session briefly under the RSA 91A 32C. And I'll need a motion to enter into non-public, and the motion will need to cite the RSA.
Mr. Chair, I move to enter into a non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, 2 parentheses C, a tax waiver and perhaps reputational harm.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Yes.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye, it's unanimous. We'll move into non-public session. We'll exit here, go into our Zoom invite. When we're done there, we'll come back to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this live coverage from Exeter TV. The board is currently in a non-public session and will return shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to this live coverage from Exeter TV. The board is currently in a non-public session and will return shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to this live coverage from Exeter TV. The board is currently in a non-public session and will return shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13 with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Well, I'll just say the slate can come down for the non-public. We're finished with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have everybody back? We do. Okay. Thank you, folks, for waiting. The board was in non-public session briefly. We did have our introductions, but once again with us this evening, we have Vice Chair Selectwoman Cowan, Clerk Selectwoman Gilman, Selectman Brown. Unfortunately, Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf will be absent this evening, so we'll be a four-person board. Also with us this evening is our town manager, Mr. Dean. All of us stated previously that we are alone in the room, respective rooms that we're in. We are now joined by our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna.
Hello, I'm alone in the room.
Great, thank you. We'll dive into our regular agenda right now, which starts with public comment.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we seal the minutes of our non-public session of June 7th, 2021 until the matter has been concluded.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown. The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is an opportunity for the public to weigh in with comments they'd like to make to the Select Board. We do ask, though, that if your comments are relative to any of the discussion items on the agenda, that you wait for that discussion item to come up. I'll pause at this time for hands to be raised. I see we have one hand up for public comment. It is a phone number ending in 7049, it looks like. If we could let that individual in. And for the record, if you'd state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Robert Ficara. I live on 6 Columbus Avenue in Exeter. I own the Exeter Bowling Lanes and Shooter's Pub. Thank you very much for this time. I would like to state the fact that the construction that has just happened on the intersection at the end of Columbus Ave, Brentwood Road, and the Epping Road is going to be something that is not only detrimental to the business of the Exeter Bowling Lanes and Shooter's Pub, as we have for 30 years encouraged our customers that come, quite frankly, from Maine and Massachusetts and the Seacoast, as well as Manchester and the Epping areas. We encourage them to come Route 101 to exit 9, 1.3 miles down, take a right, and Columbus Ave is right there, as opposed to sending them through the bandstand, which honestly I think is doing a favor for everybody in town. Now this intersection is blocked off. Cars are being directed down 111A to a turn on Washington Street, to a turn on Spruce Street, to a turn on Columbus Avenue. It's creating a very dangerous situation as well as an inconvenience. And then, marketing a business in a small neighborhood is tough enough without doing this. The other option is for cars to go all the way down to the other end of Winter Street, across from Park Street, and taking a right there, which brings you into another dangerous situation, another narrow residential street with a lot of activity on it. So there's great concern about that. The Exeter Bowling Lanes, it's estimated that with our customers, we have over 850 cars a week that come into our parking lot. And I would say easily 2/3 of those people come from the direction of Route 27, the Epping Road. I'm very concerned not only in how this is going to hurt my business, which has been there for 75 years, but the traffic that's going to happen on Winter Street which is what Exeter TV is directing people to do. Washington Street is a very narrow street. Cars parked on either side, kids playing out in the streets, and as it gets down the front street, it's even narrower. And once the kids from the high school are going back to the SST, I was a teenager once too, but we didn't have cell phones back then. We know what that's going to present. So I realized that I'm not on the agenda for this meeting with this issue, and I don't know where to go from here. I'm very disappointed in what has happened. I'm very, very disappointed that every neighbor that I talk to, people are coming up to me, finding me. We didn't know anything about this. And 3 years ago, we did canvass the neighborhood because there was talk of this, and word was made known to the town that there was concerns about this. The traffic study that was done, my understanding, was done on a Tuesday afternoon, August 21st, 2018, from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. Anybody that's spent any amount of time in this town knows that that is probably the quietest week of the year. Those times are also, I don't understand how anybody could look and see that there is a business on that street and not ask the opinion of what that business's clientele and activity schedule is. At this point, Chairman, I don't know where to go from here. I'm starting to get a little hot under the collar, and it's not the weather. So I think I should just stop what I have to say right here, and I would like a chance to come to a future meeting, and I'm really trying to understand why the town that I have tried to do a lot for, to be a good neighbor, to give back more than we get, was not taken into consideration at all. And I don't care if somebody says there were public meetings. Somebody should have come to talk to me. So I respectfully will thank you for your time. And I look forward to the opportunity to see what we can do about this mess. Thank you.
Mr. Ficarra, if you would stay on the line for just a minute. Mr. Dean, I think by way of history, correct me if I'm wrong, this began with a warrant article back in 2017. And I think that, much like some other projects, it was delayed due to funding or grants or so forth. And I think that we had a resident come before us sometime in the fall about another project, questioning the delay, a little bit of a different question than Mr. Ficarra, but nonetheless wanting to get an update from the town. So I think that where so much time has elapsed between the warrant article and now, Mr. Ficarra has obviously brought up some good points, and I think that it would be ideal for both the town and the neighborhood to have ample notice that maybe we would give an update or discuss this matter further. So I'd like to see this as a discussion item on a future select board date. I'm thinking perhaps June 21st. That will give the town enough time to put together material for an update, and also enough time for us to note it, and for the neighbors or anybody in the neighborhood that wishes to come on to either get an update or to speak about the project, some time to get their thoughts together. Mr. Ficarra, I appreciate you coming before the board with your comments, and I apologize for your frustration. You have been a long-term businessman in this community, and you've done an awful lot for the community. Nonetheless, as anybody, you're a citizen, you're a taxpayer, and we appreciate your comments. And I'd like to put this on the agenda for a discussion so that we can all hopefully try to bring a resolution or at least satisfy some of your concerns.
Thank you. I think that one of the things that gets done is that because there is a lot to running a town, and I do not profess to know how to do that, but I will state that anytime I inquire about things, I get numbers thrown at me. And I don't want to sound philosophical here, but we don't live by numbers. We live by the actual steps that we take. And for somebody to take a look at numbers from studies, in my opinion, is an incomplete thought process. I think that the several intersections in town that need work done on it, and maybe other intersections that need work on it, I will state right now that I will volunteer my time to get on a committee where there is residential input, along with the numbers, so that there can be conversations that add to our quality of life, not take away from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaccaro. Mr. Dean, if we could put that on the agenda for the June 21st meeting.
Yes, we'll have that on and give you a rundown of events to date.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll pause for a moment to see if there's any other public comment on any subjects other than what's on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, if I could just chime in real quick. I see that there is another person calling in. If that person would like to raise their hand, or for anyone else on the phone who would like to, you can enter *9 on the keypad, and that will raise your hand in the Zoom meeting, and we'll get to you.
Thank you, Dan. I will pause for another moment if somebody's calling in. Do you still see them, Dan?
They are still here, but they haven't raised their hand.
Okay. All right. Then at this point, we'll move on from public comment and go back to our agenda. Our next item, proclamations and recognitions. We do not have any this evening, so we'll move right to the approval of the Select Board meeting minutes of Monday, May 24th, 2021. And I'd first ask the board if there are any revisions or amendments to the minutes. Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board meeting minutes of Monday, May 24th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have several appointments this evening, the first of which is for the Housing Advisory Committee. As you all remember, we interviewed Kathy Corson at our last meeting. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to appoint Kathy Corson to the Housing Advisory Committee for a term to expire on April 30th, 2022.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Kathy. Thank you for volunteering. We have two open vacancies for full members on the Conservation Commission, and based on the chair's recommendation, I would entertain a motion to appoint Nick Campion as a full member to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire April 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Nick, for volunteering. And we also have Kristen Osterwood being recommended as a full-time member. So I would entertain a motion to appoint Kristen Osterwood as a full member to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire April 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Kristen, for volunteering. I will note that with these Conservation Commission appointments, it creates 2 alternate member openings with those terms to expire April 30th, 2023 and April 30th, 2024, respectively. So we would look for some applications to come in for these 2 openings. Thank you. Moving on to our discussion items. First item, as per usual, is our COVID-19 update. I know things are moving along well. We're almost there, taking a corner. I think Chief Wilking and Mr. Murray will tell us, and then afterwards we'll hear from the Parks and Rec about the opening of town indoor facilities, and lastly, Mr. Dean will lead a discussion with the board about committees and boards perhaps moving to meeting in person. So without any further ado, Chief Wilking, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Select Board, Mr. Dean, and guests. And you are correct. The town, as well as the state, is looking much better. It's the numbers are encouraging every week. In fact, the state has decided to reduce the amount of times that they provide statistics to not only the media outlets, but the communities and public health networks to just Monday to Friday. So we waited all weekend to kind of see what happened in Exeter, and I'm happy to tell you that there were no new cases over the weekend. So Exeter has seen 2 positive COVID cases over the past week. First time we've had less than kind of 1 a day since last November. So awesome numbers. Statewide, 6 people did pass with COVID, but none in Rockingham County. So I think a lot of things continue to get better. Vaccinations are exceeding 70% for those at least with their first shot, to the point where I'll kind of roll right into my second bullet. The state has decided to no longer offer first dose Moderna and Pfizer at the fixed sites. So it's kind of a PSA for anybody listening. If you have not yet been vaccinated and want to be, they're recommending scheduling at your local pharmacy, your physician, or even the hospital will offer, as well as perhaps James will speak to some local clinics. But the fixed site is winding down with a goal of closing June 30. After as many second dose vaccinations as possible. All of those are hanging out there. So time's of the essence. If you've received your first dose, please head to Newington and receive your second dose and finish that series. We had a successful student vaccination clinic over the weekend. I know James was there, and I am absolutely raining on his thunder, as I've done numerous times here. But a little over 160 students had signed up in the previous weeks, and my hat's off to the schools. We couldn't do this without Esther's help and others. It's truly a cooperative cooperative the Public Health Network and the SAU. So about 132 students did receive their vaccinations, age 12 to 17, and we're happy to provide second dose clinic on June 27. For those that receive the first dose, or of course they can go to the fixed site and receive their second dose too. And then just a final quick report. I don't know what I thought, but the transition from the mask ordinance to the advisory has gone very well, extremely smooth. I know my wife and I have been walking downtown, and this is very anecdotal, but everywhere we go, there are folks without masks. There are businesses that respectfully have asked for masks, and that is being adhered to. My ice cream fix at Stillwell's every night is met with a smile on their face and a mask on mine, because that's what they ask. But it's going really well. We haven't heard any reports of confrontations or shaming or all that we considered a possibility. So I can't speak highly enough of our residents, and we're acting like adults, and things are getting much better as we move along downtown. So, proud of all, and look forward to some encouraging numbers as we move forward.
Great, thank you, Chief, for the update. Are there any questions for the Chief before we move on to Mr. Murray? Great. Good evening, James.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and guests. I don't have too much to add to that. Like the Chief said, we had a really good clinic yesterday at the school, 132 vaccinated. Assistant Chief Pison and myself. I don't believe we have any first dose clinics coming up. We have a couple second dose clinics to wrap up. Still happy to organize that with any businesses or any groups that want to organize that. You can reach out to us. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. We're trending in the right direction. For the board's knowledge, on the June 21st meeting, I'll be unable to make it. It's that time of year I do my annual tour with the Army Reserves, so I'll be out for that meeting, but I'm happy to come back after that and give updates as necessary.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any questions for James? All right, James, thanks again for everything. Next, we have Mr. Bison, who's going to talk about the opening of town indoor facilities. And Greg, I apologize. When I first looked at you, I thought you had a propeller hat on, but I see that it's a ceiling fan in your background.
Ceiling fan. I had to shut off the AC, Mr. Chair, so you guys wouldn't be drowned out. So yes, we're proposing opening the town facilities, all town facilities at 100% capacity. We feel that that's the right move. Masks are recommended for those that are not vaccinated. That's one of the important things. We would get signage as well that posts that we would recommend it, as well as put verbiage in our permitting paperwork to pretty much have the user sign off. Then, if you would give us to July 1st, we can organize a proper schedule and give it to DPW to organize cleaning, as you can see in the memo. And thank you, Chief Wilkins, for bringing this to our attention after last meeting. That FEMA will reimburse for cleaning from COVID-19. So as long as we bring in a third party, it is fully reimbursable. So we would pass that on, and if and when that changes, we would recommend using the American Recovery Act money just for this year, and then moving forward, we'll see how it works out.
And you feel comfortable you can accomplish all this by July 1st?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have about 22 applications in the file right now.
Okay. All right, great. Any questions for Mr. Bison? Russ, would you like a motion from the board to officially reopen the buildings as of July 1st?
No, I don't. Actually, Mr. Chairman, I know you mean for special events?
Yes.
If you're going to move to open them for special events, I would say yes.
Okay.
Somebody else wants a motion too, I think.
Mr. Dean, are you differentiating that from, say, someone renting the back room of the Arts Gallery for a meeting?
No, I was just actually thinking about how in this, with us as staff, we've had our facilities open to the public for quite a while. So if the July 1st date is good and you can word it in such a way that it just references special events or, other things other than town operations, then that would be fine. But a consensus of the board is fine too. I don't need to vote on it.
So special permitted events, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is the board comfortable with just a consensus, or would somebody rather make a motion?
I'm okay with the consensus.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Selectman Brown?
Consensus is fine with me.
And I'm fine with that as well. So July 1st, Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll get that going starting tomorrow.
Okay. And I think we're going to see you later in the agenda, correct? All right.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dean, we received a memo, or an email rather, from the NHMA last week, I believe, reminding us that the governor's executive order expires this Friday, June 11th. And with that expiration, presumably boards and committees will need to start meeting in person. We talked about this briefly at our last meeting, and I asked you to talk with staff and IT and Exeter TV as to how we would make this work. So I think a couple of things. First off, obviously we won't know until Friday whether the governor is going to let it expire or extend it. At which time, if he does extend it, we can continue to meet virtually. But if not, and I think that with the NHMA sending out a specific detailed email like that they anticipate he'll let it expire. We need to start making plans to meet in person. I know Mr. Sharples is on as a participant. I think for the land use boards, the ZBA and the planning board, any meeting that's already been noted or anybody that's been notified in writing has been notified that the meetings would be virtual. Again, the ZBA meeting is as close as next Tuesday, June 15th. So presumably those meetings would have to be canceled, rescheduled, and re-notified. But for the select board and other committees and boards, we would be able to hit the ground running effective Monday. So can you just walk us through the progress you've made since our last meeting?
Sure. So we had today, actually, I had Bob Kulacki, who's also on the call, and Andy Swanson and myself. We went through some of the things that we need to prepare to have the EXTV space ready to go, and also Channel 22 and Channel 98. And so we did a mock-up of a meeting, just made sure all the technical items were in place. And, by and large, I think we're ready to go. I think one of the issues to sort of work through is the idea that I'm sure some people are going to look at, can we hold a hybrid type meeting? And again, when the order ends, what will be required is a physical location for the meeting, but it won't preclude from having a hybrid meeting. Now, Bob can speak to this as well, but he and I were working on that today, and he was doing an excellent job priming us to do that. I don't know that we're ready for prime time on that quite yet. I think technically we might be there, but it's going to take a little bit of training of our board and committee members if that's something they're really interested in pursuing. So we are taking, sort of the KISS approach right now, which is get us back in the room, get us sitting down together, having a meeting, and going back to what we would normally consider to be a local government meeting of our boards.
Under what obligation, if any, are we required to offer a hybrid meeting?
We're not required to offer a hybrid meeting at all.
Okay. And one of the, I guess if you could, one of the few good things about how we've conducted meetings over the last 14 months is that I think the public had access to almost every committee that met because it was either on Zoom or Facebook or YouTube or Channel 22. And I know that staff was sort of restricted with staff, was restricted with rooms and times and dates and all of that. How difficult would it be to continue to televise most of the committees that we've been televising over the last year?
Oh, I think it would be very difficult to do that. I think we'd have a hard time. I mean, we have begun making our lists, and what the direction that I've given the staff is basically to make our boards like the Conservation Commission, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Planning Board. Those are the priority boards that really need to be on TV first before we go into some of our advisory committees. It's not playing favorites. It's just the way it is with the boards themselves. So just looking at that, I think the short answer to your question is it would be a great challenge to put all of our boards and committees and commissions on TV with the staffing we have today.
So for our next meeting, can you and Bob and staff take a look at what bandwidth we have, how many meetings and how many committees can we televise realistically so that we can sort of, try to get as many in as possible?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll take a look at that for it. Yeah.
Julie?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that during this time when we've been meeting virtually, it's been easier for the staff actually to run these meetings from remotely, as opposed, and it's been better for us to have people who can actually work two jobs and deal with us at night, as opposed to actually coming in downtown. So that's why we have to have a discussion about how we're going to move forward. It's not because we've never done it before. It's because we need to know we have the personnel to do it.
And EXTV resources, I'll add to that, are really stretched at the moment. And that is one of the issues that we do have to deal with. And we may be back talking with you shortly about a couple of ideas of how to remedy that situation. But it's it's a tight labor market for sure, and it's difficult to keep people. So we are going through that with a fine-tooth comb right now.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Selectman Brown?
I definitely have an appreciation for it. Makes it easier for the staff to be able to work remotely. And I think, I don't know the historical data, but I would wager that select board attendance will be easier to maintain a hybrid, or any committee. It'll be easier to keep, a truly open attendance if we keep hybrid in mind, or in practice from day one.
Selectwoman Gilman.
Well, I would just like to add that is what I would favor too, is have a hybrid meeting, because we do get more participation in these virtual meetings. But in my experience with having those in the State House, it still involved a person either in place or close by to manage the interaction between the television screen and the sound controls, et cetera. It wasn't quite as simple as doing it this remotely.
Thank you.
That's just a point of consideration for the future discussion.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Brown?
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, it's in response to the comment from Mr. Ficaro about Shooter's Pub and the notification of things. That was basically referencing a pre-COVID time where, a meeting on Tuesday morning was inaccessible, or a meeting could be inaccessible just by nature of, where it had to be. And I think the blessing of COVID has been we have a new way to meet that is accessibility is what it's all about. So.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
Yeah, sorry for adding on to it, but I would like to, just for clarification, there was a bill that was going to put forward the legality of continuing to do virtual meetings, and it was knocked down to having a study committee to talk about having virtual meetings. So as far as the board is concerned, we have to meet in person until the study committee's done and makes a report, and another bill is presented, which won't be until next January. So it's frustrating. So, but again, it's really just the board itself that has to meet in person and not the public. So anything we can do to look at that would be great.
Okay. Great. Excellent point. Thank you. Bob Glowacki from Exeter TV.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add, I'd be happy to meet with any of the board members to demonstrate like the hybrid setup in the Novak room. It would help us to practice if someone wanted to come and check it out. So we'd be happy to set something up this week or early next week if someone wanted to come in and see what it would be like. We'd be happy to do that.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Any other comments, Selectwoman Cowan?
Question about availability in terms of people on committees running the meeting or facilitating the meetings, so that we don't always have, or committees don't always have to have a staffer there in order to make it accessible.
That's a good point.
And that's a challenge as well. If I understood your question right.
I understand, but I also, to the other select board members' points, accessibility of meetings and participation increases when there are different ways to access meetings. And I just wonder if it's something, we have a lot of talented people on boards, and can we, train or ask or whatever, not to take the place of our EXTV staff, but not to, in order to get everybody on TV and everybody accessible. Is that possible? And what would that look like?
We definitely need to do some training, and I would recommend you go into YouTube and look at my state municipal and county government meetings. Like the first one we had in February, I think, which is where we worked out all the kinks about sound and reverberation and raising your hand, et cetera, just so you get an idea of what people are going to have to get used to with a hybrid meeting. And it would involve training volunteers to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think Bob would have to speak to, as far as like the staffing model that Molly suggested, whether or not there's enough people right now on staff that could handle that.
Yeah, I could just, as far as the meetings that are in the Novak room that we would traditionally film, and kind of to answer that question in a previous one, right now we were doing about 22 to 24 meetings per month. Historically, we did 10 to 12. So that's kind of what we're going back to, or that's the plan at least. And then maybe we can readdress, expanding that back to some of these that we have expanded this past year. But I think for all the virtual stuff, we would handle all of it, the hybrid side of it, if it's in the Novak room. There just isn't really any other location that the town has that can be set up that way. Possibly the wheelwright room with the television that's in there, but it's quite small, so there's no distancing or anything. So that's kind of a more limiting factor than doing setting it up like that. For some of the smaller boards, if they were to do it themselves, we'd be happy to train. Just I'm not sure there's a location if there's still a physical location required.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, before way down in the agenda, we're going to talk about review board calendar, but I think it's going to be vital that we add a select board meeting for next Monday, which is June 11th. No, it's not. It's June 14th. I'm sorry. Regardless of what happens, something's going to happen Friday. Either the executive order is going to expire or it's going to be extended. Folks are going to want to know how and where we're meeting. And just as important, our committees and boards are going to be looking for guidance from us as to how they're going to meet. So, Mr. Dean, I would like to schedule a regular select board meeting for next Monday, June 14th. And one of the discussion items, or the first discussion item, will be moving forward with how we're going to meet. And Bob has generously offered to give us a demonstration. I think maybe later this week I can take him up on that offer, as well as any other board members that want to come down and meet with you and Bob. But certainly, once you post the meeting Friday afternoon, you'll have a better idea of whether or not we're going to be meeting virtually or in person. So, I think it's, as a board, it's important that we meet again next Monday to address this and a couple other matters. So we'll leave it at that for now. But I think our committees and boards should prepare to start meeting in person. And certainly by Friday and Monday evening, we'll be able to advise committees and boards as to exactly, what is expected of them, and they can start making preparations. Perhaps in addition to posting the meeting notice, if maybe your office could email all of the boards and committee chairs and let them know that we'll be talking about this Monday evening. Certainly we'd love them in attendance, or at least get their input. And then obviously, Tuesday morning, you'd be notifying them via email is how we're proceeding. So.
Yes, we'll coordinate all of that, and we're going to be on the fly here. You're right, so we will.
Okay, great. And if you hear anything in the meantime, if you keep us posted, of course, and I'll reach out to you and Bob. Maybe we can meet up later this week.
Okay,
great.
Just for reference, Mr. Chair, if the emergency order is run out and no longer applies, boards and committees and commissions can still have at least a quorum has to be physically present in whatever place the meeting is posted for, but some people could still call in electronically, either by phone or by video.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The next item was for a public hearing for restoration of involuntary merged lot. However, The town manager's office, as well as the select board, I think, received some new information and regarding this discussion item, and town staff needs a little bit more time to investigate or at least provide us with some additional information. So I don't think that we're ready to deliberate this matter tonight. So I would respectfully request that the board make a motion to table this discussion item until our June 21st, 2021 meeting. Mr. Dean, will that give us enough time?
Yes, it should be. It should give you enough time.
Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next we have our first reading on animal control ordinance amendment. Mr. Dean, do you care to introduce this for us?
Sure. This is a proposed ordinance update to the animal control ordinance. And basically what this change would do is it would add Kids Park and Townhouse Common to the areas where dogs are not allowed. When we went through our ordinance after Parks and Rec had some issues with dogs in those locations, we found that neither of those two spots were listed. So we thought we'd bring forward this proposal to allow for a conversation whether the board was interested in adding those to the list of parks where we prohibit dogs in the town.
Great. Questions or comments from the board? Mr. Bisson, did you have any comments?
Not whatever, Mr. Chair. Especially the Kids Park one is a no-brainer. We've just spent a lot of money on renovating it, and we have a lot of small kids. If you've gone by, that is probably the busiest park now we have, besides Planet Playground. So I would advise, and we've gotten several complaints of dogs walking in there.
Okay. And Mr. Dean, remind me how many readings do we need?
This would be the first of 3.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? And I'll pause for a moment. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Seeing no other questions or comments, Mr. Dean, we can have a second reading next week?
Yes, we can.
Great, okay. Next on the agenda, we have continued conversation on the classification plan amendment, discussing the potential recommendation for Mr. Dean to replace the retiring human resources director with an assistant town manager and HR director. Mr. Dean, I know you've updated your memo and made some revisions to the job description. We can have some preliminary conversation this evening, but with the board's request, I would like to take this up further in a more thorough presentation next Monday when we have a complete board. I'm not comfortable taking a vote this evening on something this important without having the whole board here. And we expect Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf will be back next Monday. So if the board would indulge me, I would like to table at least voting on this until Monday, the 14th. But Mr. Dean, certainly you can speak to this in your memo.
Sure. So this comes out of the board's goals meeting that you had back in April. And we came up with this proposal for an assistant town manager, HR director. And basically we're following the track that we are following the track that the police chief and the fire chief followed when they had a reorganization of their structure. And you have a memo in your packet that talks about the advantages of doing such a move. And so what we're looking at is a position that would be grade 13 and would be an assistant town manager, HR director.
Okay. And, I'll also further elaborate on that, Mr. Dean, and remind folks what we discussed. We have a pending retirement of our human resources director. the select board at their goal setting session in April, which was publicly noticed, and also we met live in the Novak room. The meeting was open to the public. One of the things we talked about was reorganization as a whole, but we also specifically discussed this, and that's why it really is imperative to have Selectwoman Rautriola here, because this was an item that she felt very strongly about as well. The whole reorganization of committees and boards, and which she and I are working on, and so I know she'd like to have a voice in this, rightfully so. But with the pending retirement of the Human Resources Director, we have an opportunity to take a look at, frankly, the growing needs of the town, not growing in size in terms of population, but the growing needs of the town, which have changed significantly, at least since Mr. Dean has been here. Further, there is no succession plan. Should the town manager go on vacation? Should the town manager have to leave for work-related meetings for a period of time? If the town manager takes ill? If the town manager moves on to another opportunity? There's no succession plan. Many communities, have incorporated such a reorganization or realignment of the organization as a whole. Most assistant town managers do assume a lot of the high-level personnel. We do have a part-time personnel, human resources individual that works on the day-to-day things. So this is really an opportunity to make some progress in many ways, in a financially stable way that will not cost anything more, because the money is already in the budget, give or take a few dollars on a reclass and grade, but certainly that money is in the budget. This is a perfect opportunity, again, to make progress, again, to address the needs, allow the town manager, to focus on the day-to-day things that he or she needs to focus on, and delegate some of that work to an assistant town manager. This is not creating another manager that has a contract that reports to the select board. This position would report to the town manager, much like the human resources director already reported to the town manager. Most of the department heads of large departments would continue to report to Mr. Dean. It is similar to the police department reorganization of 2019. It's similar to the reorganization of the water sewer department in 2019. And I think more analogous comparison would be this year when Chief Como retired and Chief Wilking took the opportunity to reorg the fire department in similar fashion. When a new position is created, that is adding a new position, adding new staff, adding new money to the budget, is something that would go before the Budget Recommendations Committee. I think I can speak strongly to that, having chaired the Budget Recommendations Committee for 2 years. We had such opportunities to review requests for personnel, for additional funds. This is slightly different in that this is just taking a reorg from one position to another, using the funds that have already been budgeted. So therefore, I would argue that, or submit to you, that this is different than presenting requests for personnel to the Budget Recommendations Committee. So, Mr. Dean, I came in to allow you time for a glass of water. Was there anything else to add to your memo before we open it up to the rest of the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, the other thing I just wanted to mention was that there are many towns in New Hampshire that have this position. And just to name a few: Lebanon, Claremont, Goffstown, Rye, Salem, Peterborough, Londonderry, Belmont, Franklin, Northfield, Atkinson, Somersworth, Keene, and Rochester were ones, when we did the due diligence, they made the list. So there's quite a few examples of this position out there in the state of New Hampshire right now.
Okay. Comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I know that in the memo that was in the packet, there were some recommendations of looking at other towns that have this kind of position. And some of them were, Portsmouth is a city and it's well beyond our population. And although we have the similar amenities or services, I don't find it a comparable for this position. But some of the other ones that Mr. Dean had just listed off do have either comparable populations or smaller populations. Exeter is number 19 out of 236 towns or municipalities in New Hampshire as far as the population goes. So we're, not exactly at one, not exactly at another, but there are towns half the size of us that have this position, and there are towns that are just 1,000 or two below us that have, thinking of Lebanon, that have an assistant and offer the same municipal services of fire department, police department, waste management, the whole thing. So I would like to take a little bit more time to, I have 20 tabs on my Internet Explorer with these towns, and I'm not ready to vote either, but I would like to throw out there with the, I don't want to feel rushed because our HR director is retiring. So I'd like to make a suggestion that in the interim, interviewing people and finish with this job description, that we may want to use the services of MRI and the municipal resources for a short period of time until this is all.
Yeah. We're going to have to, obviously with the pending retirement, and this is not, something that would be rushed, for the sake of filling this between now and the retirement, if the board felt so inclined to vote for this. Certainly we have staff members, that are familiar with payroll. We do have our assistant in the Human Resources Office, Rhea, who can jump in, and I know that Donna has been working very carefully and thoroughly to get Rhea up to speed. But you're absolutely right. This is a process where there will have to be interviews. I anticipate that there would even be an interview committee amongst the town manager, selected staff, and maybe select board member or two. But I think that we will have to reach out to MRI to bring somebody in on a very, very short-term interim basis, hopefully, to assume some of the duties that Donna has been performing. Selectman Brown, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just appreciate all the comments from the chair. I'm in full support of the logic behind it, the reasoning process. I think I'm in full support of the method and the motivation here. In short, there must be a contingency plan at the town manager level, and I'm in full support of this way of getting there. So thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Brown. Selectman Cowan, do you have anything to add?
I don't know that I have anything to add other than, I supported the reorg with DPW. With, the thinking there was that was going to be a succession plan. I also supported the reorg when we elevated Chief Poulin to his current position, and then we have Deputy Chief Monk. Likewise with Chief Wilking, and I think that this makes sense. I think that we have an incredibly strong town, and we have an incredibly strong chair, and we, need to be planning for the future here, because we don't know we don't know the makeup of the select board. We don't know what's going to happen. And there needs to be a contingency plan that is in place, that is vetted, that is thorough. And so I am also in support of this. We can wait to vote when Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf is back and have that discussion, the full discussion then, and I'll save the rest of my remarks for then.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I did want to point out, if I could, that I just wanted to let people know that whenever we amend our classification plan, we actually put it out to the public, and it's in the packets that we have. And when those changes are made, we notate them at the bottom. So, like, for instance, you can go back and see the last time we amended the plan, which was November 9th of 2020, and that was when the fire department made those changes that it made. So I just wanted to let people know that that's out there and can be consumed publicly for people to see.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. I would open this up to the public at this time if any public wants to make comment. And I would also suggest that, public can comment next Monday when Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf is with us, because I'm sure she would want to hear your thoughts. We do have a hand up. So Dan, if we could help our attendee, and if you would just state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a much better looking picture than me. Jay Charles from 7 Hunter Place. I just had a couple of questions around this. One, it appears like a assistant town manager position that sort of combines the role, however you want to call it, of HR director could be a conflict of interest in some ways if that person is the assistant town manager representative of town government and an HR issue comes up. There just appears to me that there could potentially be a conflict of interest there. The only other two things I have to say is I know we need to have a contingency plan, but I think the last time we've gone through a lot of this, somebody gives an indication that they're going to be leaving in a certain period of time, and generally they give us that time to be able to begin the process of looking for a replacement, so there's a level of overlap. If there is a temporary need for somebody to step in for the town manager, I know that Massachusetts has a lieutenant governor. New Hampshire doesn't have a lieutenant governor. I'm not sure what happens if Governor Sununu is incapacitated for a while. What happens? I'm just wondering why somebody we already have in a position of the select board or a chair of the select board or a department head within town government wouldn't be able to step in for that time, because sense that the town is growing. You did mention, Chair, that we haven't grown significantly population-wise. I'd just like to understand better what responsibilities are challenging now without having this position that would be better or more easily done having this position in addition to an admin assistant to the town manager and the town manager.
The lieutenant governor is actually the Senate president, so it would go to Chuck Morse.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Childs, thank you very much for your questions, and very thought-provoking, and I'd like to just try to address each one briefly, if I may. Regarding the conflict of interest, Mr. Dean, spoke of the communities in New Hampshire that have this type of structure. I know it's not New Hampshire, sir, but my day job is I work with 350 municipalities in Massachusetts, and most of the towns this size and some smaller have this type of a structure. When we first started talking about this, I actually reached out to legal counsel to ask whether or not there would be any conflict of interest. And obviously, when you've got this person that's assigned as the assistant town manager and also handling personnel matters, they assume that role of confidentiality that an HR director would have. So there wouldn't be a conflict of interest with that regard. In terms of temporary succession, the first part of your question, makes sense when life is predictable. But life isn't always predictable. And sometimes, people have to take leave unexpectedly. Sometimes it's very unexpectedly, and sometimes they can return, sometimes they cannot return. Much like we did recently in a situation where Mr. Dean was out for a short period of time, we were able to reach into our resources. And again, we are incredibly fortunate to have the resources that we have. And I have said that repeatedly during meetings. I've said that in the media, and I've said that, in social aspects. We are incredibly fortunate to have the resources. However, number one, when you take a department head away from their responsibilities, we as a town are losing out. because they are solely taking away from their responsibilities. They're being taken away from their respective staffs if they have staff that they supervise. Additionally, we were fortunate this time around to find somebody that was incredibly capable of doing the job, but also came at it with a degree of neutrality, okay? Without maybe consciously or subconsciously advocating for a particular department or a project. But I think the most important thing here is recognizing that with all of the talent that we have, the worst case scenario would be to take them away from their day-to-day operations on a 10-week, 12-week basis. Additionally, from a financial standpoint, we just talked about MRI and bringing somebody in on a very short interim for the human resources role. But when you're reaching out to MRI for an interim town manager, there's a couple things to take into consideration. The first of which is you're going to be spending a lot more out of your budget because whoever you're bringing in as an interim town manager, more times than not, is a very seasoned individual who has many years of experience is going to cost more money than if you had somebody that was in line to succeed on a short-term basis. Additionally, sometimes the pool of resources are individuals who may not be employed for a reason. And on that, I speak from experience in dealing with the municipalities that I work with. So, taking that all into consideration, I think that as a whole, the town benefits the most if we have that succession plan in-house. We set that up for our police department, respectively. We set it up for our fire department, respectively. And we set it up for our water and sewer department, respectively. The latter two was done in 2019. And of course, Chief Como retired early in 2020, and that gave Chief Wilkin the opportunity to reorg. So those are just my thoughts based on your questions, but I appreciate the questions and I appreciate your thoughts.
I just wanted to add, Mr. Chairman, too, we did that with Public Works and Parks and Recreation as well.
And further to that, those were all done at open select board meetings.
Correct.
Mr. Childs, I see your hand is still up. I didn't know if you had any other comments or questions.
No, sorry. I understand what you're saying in terms of the succession plan and everything. I know and everything, but it seems to me that I'm not necessarily for adding bodies to the town office, but that it might be a better idea to keep those two things separate. If the town believes that it needs an assistant town manager, put that position up and then hire somebody who's essentially HR. I see that there could be potential issues putting those two things together. But if the answer is that legal has told you that it's fine, then I guess that's the answer.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to add too, Mr. Chair, if I could, just to let people know that this is how the town of Londonderry is organized. They have an assistant town manager who's also the HR director.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. We have two other hands up. Dan, if we could let, I think Ann Sturman is next in line.
Yes, hi, Ann Sturman, 14 Cullen Way. And I appreciate the discussion that's going on tonight. I really want to thank you for doing all the extra work compared to the last meeting where it almost seemed like you were going to vote on it that very evening. So I appreciate all the work that's gone in notifying folks of what's going on. I just also had a couple of questions that have come up. When we compare our town manager to other town managers, how it's set up, do all these other towns have multi-year contracts with their current town managers? Here, we have a 7-year contract with our current town manager. So I'm curious how that, it's for what it is, it's 7 years, basically a guarantee for both sides. So that's one thing I'd like to have addressed. I think situation that would not be the case. other comment I wanted to make is what other towns do, I really don't have that much interest in, because to me, I'm still looking for the data for some sort of analysis to quantify what is not getting done, what duties of the town manager are not being accomplished. I'm really not, the succession plan, I understand that you need to have somebody to step into a role, but my main concern, and I apologize for this clock that's coming off, I just wanted to understand that there must be some duties that are not getting done, to require an assistant town manager / HR director. This day and age, HR is really a key role. I see that as a standalone position. Whether legal thinks it's a conflict of interest or not, I feel that that needs to be an autonomous position, just because of the nature of what it is. So I have concerns on that as well. And you did describe why you're not going through budget committee, although I guess I'm not making myself clear on the notion that this is in fact a new position the way it is. Whether there's budgetary money for it is one thing, but it's a new title, assistant town manager / HR director, which has never existed before in this budget in this town. So I just want to be clear about that. I don't see really the correlation to fire and police. That's a different set of circumstances. Police, you have to have, I mean, it's an emergency type of thing. You have to have someone to stand in for your chief in both police and fire. In terms of management of a town, it's an administrative position. And as you have said so eloquently, we have amazing department heads who have been able to run their departments extremely well over the years. So I think that's something to add to this discussion. I'm glad you're going to have it again on Monday, because I think there just needs to be a little more vetting going on as to why it is needed. I also appreciate the fact that you're talking about MRI for the interim, that you're not rushing into something. I greatly appreciate that. That was another question I had, and you answered that, and I appreciate it. Sorry to go on, but I just have a lot of questions on this, which is kind of why I would have liked it to go through budget, because then it would give the town people a chance to kind of, warm up to the idea and just understand it, as opposed to kind of what's still going on here. But again, my main thing is that I'd like some quantification as to why Town of Exeter needs an full-time assistant town manager. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Sermon. And Ms. Sermon actually spoke about town managers and contracts. And typically, it's more unusual to have a town manager on a rolling contract. Most town managers do have multi-year contracts. And I vividly remember a few years ago when the select board did offer Mr. Dean his contract, and I congratulate them for taking the step to offer that contract, because it certainly set a trend locally. So I think that select board at the time was commended for recognizing the talent that they had and doing what most towns do and offer a multi-year contract. We have Mr. Campbell is next. Good evening, Bill.
Wait a minute. Well, I think now I'm unmuted. Is that?
No, we can hear you, Bill. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. But one question I had is, first of all, I have trouble, I guess, keeping up with what's going on. I try and watch these meetings. Do we have an HR director now? I know we do. And an assistant?
The assistant HR person was approved, Bill, by the select board in 2018.
Okay.
I believe it was the last year I chaired the BRC. It's a part-time position.
Part-time position.
Okay. And the select board approved it. Yes.
So now you're going to try and appoint a person who's an assistant town manager and an HR director, and keep the assistant HR director. Is that right? It's
an assistant HR position, Bill. It's not a director.
I'm sorry. You're right. I admit. It seems to me, if you've already got 1.5 positions doing HR, that to try and fit in a person to do HR, we're losing out somewhere on the HR position, because it'll now be, instead of 1.5 people doing HR, it will be 1/2 and 1/2, I guess, or one. And it seems to me that as our town grows, I remember back when HR was busier than a one-armed paper hanger already, and that was just with the one HR person. Sure. So I'm concerned that this will be fine. We do it this year, and then within another year, somebody's going to come back and say, "Oh, we can't do this without a full-time HR person." That's the way things go. And I think it would be good to, Ann Sermon's put a couple points in that were good. The one I'm concerned about too is having someone else look at this. And that's one of the jobs of the BRC. I know in my experience, we hassled over often when I was with the budget committee and then with the selectmen, we hassled over a lot of proposals for part-time positions, full-time positions, and we didn't always approve them right away. They kind of went and then came back another year, and and some of them won out. But I think it would be good. I'm worried. I mean, there's 2 or 3 of us commenting tonight on this, which I think is an important issue. We don't get, Russ said that the stuff gets put in the agenda and is also noted at the bottom of the agenda, certain aspects of these things. But the town does not really get information. The Exeter newsletter is pretty useless now for this kind of thing. And I would hope that the board would not become too insular in just doing these kind of things. I'm not sure that I knew about the police and fire reorganization. I'm sure they're good, but again, that's if all this is being done just by the select board and without input from other people, and one of the best is the budget review committee, then I think it's not as clean and as good. So I would recommend that it be discussed next week, but that it would go to the budget review committee before it's implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Selectwoman Gilman, I don't see any other hands up from the public. You had your hand up earlier.
No, my comment's not necessary anymore. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Dean, we will put this on the agenda for next Monday night when Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf is back, and we'll discuss this further. I appreciate everybody's thoughts this evening. Thank you very much. Moving on, we have DPW Director Jennifer Perry here with a drought update. Hi, Jen.
Good evening. I know we've had some great rain over the Memorial Day weekend. I think a lot of us had our plans changed because of that. And it did provide some short-term relief, but you could see from my memo that we're already tumbling down, and I just did a quick update this evening. I checked the Hague Road gauge, and we're down to 33 cubic feet per second, which is considered low flow for the Exeter River. And we've had, obviously, tonight, 2 more days of extreme heat. So we're continuing to watch conditions very closely. Most of the state continues to be in a drought condition. Exeter, this area, we're in what's considered abnormally dry conditions. We do have adequate flow for our current demands, but we are keeping a very close eye on things. And so I think the rainfall deficit so far this year is just over 6 inches. So, it's something that we haven't turned the corner on yet. There are predictions that there should be above average flows or precipitation in July and August. And so we have our fingers crossed, but that's always a very tight time of year as far as water flow for our production of drinking water. So we recommend that we continue with the alternate day outdoor water restrictions, the level 2 restrictions, and continue to put messages out. We do have the programmable message board out on Portsmouth Avenue. We put out messages regularly on Facebook and Exeter TV, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Jen, for the update. Any questions for Director Perry? Great. Thank you for the update, Jen, and we'll look forward to further updates in the future and hopefully get out of this this hot spell in the next day or two.
Yes, we will keep you updated.
Great, thank you. Next, you're going to present the proposal for the surface water treatment plan for the lagoon sludge removal services.
Yes, we have in your packet tonight a proposal from GZA to conduct the sludge removal at the surface water treatment plant on Portsmouth Avenue. This is several years worth of sludge that's accumulated from our alum chemical treatment. It does produce a fairly large volume of sludge, and historically we used to transport that sludge to the wastewater treatment plant. When we had the old lagoons, we could afford to do that. However, with the current treatment process, that's no longer an option, and so this material does need to be removed from the site and transported to a solid waste facility. And GZA has pulled some pricing together. One of the options is to transport the material to North Country Landfill, which is it is in Bethlehem. They have a lower price. It's $112 per ton tipping fee to take it to Bethlehem. And the total cost for that would be approximately $250,000. If that is no longer an option, because there were some questions about their capacity to take all of the sludge, and there's 695, almost 700 tons of sludge estimated to be there. There is also an option to transport the material to waste management in Rochester. And that is a higher cost. That's $145 per ton tipping fee. And that, if we had to pursue that, would be approximately $273,000. We do have $275,000 in the that approved through the budget process last year. So that is what's available. And so the department is recommending that we proceed with this work. We do need to remove this material this year and provide ample space for continued filter backwashing and clarifier flushing at the surface water treatment plant.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Director Perry? Jen, are you looking for a motion to approve GZA to commence with the project, or are you looking for a motion to spend up to $273,000 if the costs go higher?
Yes, that is our recommendation to proceed with the, there is an agreement for GZA in the packet, but the amount we would recommend at least giving us authorization to go up to the full amount of 275 if it's warranted, but it may not be.
Up to 275, which is what's budgeted. Okay.
That's what's budgeted. And that, if we have to curtail our removal, let's say prices are just too high, that's what we would do.
Okay.
But we would like to be able to spend the full amount if we have to.
Understood. Selectwoman Gilman.
Yeah, I just wanted to catch up people if you were at the deliberative session or you saw it last in March. We're talking about the legacy sludge. That's all.
I think that was one of the highlights of the session. Our town moderator got a good chuckle out of that. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the Department of Public Works to approve GCA Geoenvironmental Inc. To begin the surface water treatment plan lagoon sludge removal services with an expenditure up to the budgeted $275,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. The motion's unanimous. Thank you, Director Perry.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And next we have the bond resolution for the FY21 bond sale, Salem Street project lagoon cleaning. And Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn that over to you for a reading.
This is for the $7.7 million bonds for Salem Street and for the sludge removal of the wastewater lagoons.
Okay. Oops. My fingers are hitting the wrong places. Okay, this is a certificate of vote regarding the authorization of bonds and approval of loan agreement with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. I, the undersigned clerk of the issuer, hereby certify that a meeting of the governing body of the issuer, the board, was held on June 7th, 2021. A quorum of the board was in attendance and voting throughout. I further certify that there are no vacancies on the board, that all of the members of the board were duly notified of the time, place, and purposes of said meeting, including as one of the purposes, the authorization of bonds and approval of a loan agreement between the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, the bond bank, and the issuer. I further certify that the following is a true copy of resolutions unanimously adopted at said meeting. Resolved that under and pursuant to the Municipal Finance Act, Chapter 33 of New Hampshire RSA, as amended, the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank Law, Chapter 35-A, New Hampshire RSA, as amended, and other laws in addition thereto, and to votes of the issuer duly adopted on March 9th, 2021, under Article 3 and 5 of the warrant for such annual meeting of the issuer, there be and hereby is authorized the issuance of a $7,700,000 bond of the issuer, the bond, which is being issued by the issuer for the purpose of financing, one, the design and construction of water, sewer, drainage, road, and utility improvements in the Salem Street area for $5,100,000, and two, the removal of sludge from the wastewater lagoons at 13 Newfields Road in the amount of $2,600,000. The bond shall be dated as of its date of issuance, shall be in such numbers and denominations as the purchaser shall request, shall mature in accordance with the schedule set forth in Exhibit A to a certain loan agreement hereinafter described, the loan agreement, shall bear a net interest cost rate as defined in the loan agreement of 2.5% per annum, or such lesser amount as may be determined by a majority of the board. The bond shall be substantially in the form set forth in Exhibit B to the loan agreement, and otherwise shall be issued in such manner and form as the signatory shall approve by their execution thereof. Resolved that the bond shall be sold to the bond bank at the par value thereof plus any applicable premium. Resolved that in order to evidence the sale of the bond, the treasurer of issuer and a member of the board are authorized and directed to execute, attest, and deliver in the name and on behalf of the issuer a loan agreement in substantially the form submitted to this meeting, which is hereby approved with such changes therein not inconsistent with this vote, and approved by the officers executing the same on behalf of the issuer. The approval of such changes by said officers shall be conclusively evidenced by the execution of the loan agreement by such officers. Resolved that all things heretofore done and all action heretofore taken by the issuer and its officers and agents in its authorization of the project to be financed by the bond are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed. Resolved that the clerk and the signers of the bond are each hereby authorized to take any and all action necessary and convenient to carry out the provisions of this vote, including delivering the bond against payment therefor. Resolved that the useful life of the project being financed is in excess of 15 years. I further certify that said meeting was open to the public. The aforesaid vote was not taken by secret ballot nor in executive session. That the votes were taken by a roll call if the meeting was held remotely/virtually and in accordance with the Governor's Order Number 12. that the notice of the time and place of said meeting was posted in at least 2 appropriate public places within the territorial limits of the issuer, or published in a newspaper of general circulation in said area, at least 24 hours, excluding Sundays and legal holidays, before said meeting. That no deliberations or actions with respect to the vote were taken in executive session, and that the minutes of said meeting have been promptly recorded and have been or will be made open to inspection within 144 hours of said meeting, all in accordance with Chapter 91-A of the New Hampshire RSAs as amended. I further certify that the above vote has not been amended or rescinded and remains in full force and effect as of this date. And then there is the where I witnessed the where I signed the document.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments?
Was there a vote, Mr. Chair, was there a vote to adopt the resolution?
No, I just read it.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
To adopt.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to adopt the FY21 bond sale Salem Street project lagoon cleaning bond resolution.
So moved.
I will second. Oh, sorry. Selectwoman Cowan seconding. Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Yes.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving into regular business, we just have a 1 yield tax, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to accept a yield tax for map 13, lot 3 in the amount of $101.27.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have Assistant Fire Chief Justin Pizon. Good evening, Chief.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good to see everyone tonight. I will say I'll be happy to get back in person too. So I look forward to that day when it comes, hopefully soon enough. So I'll be quick. I had a request from the owner of 7 Oak Street, Mr. Matthew Healy, who had previous approval to subdivide his lot and has since built a 2-family. He'll sell those off as condos behind his 7 Oak Street residence. And anybody familiar with that area can appreciate the fact it's pretty congested and there were no numbers available. So after consulting with the state and Mr. Healy on choosing a name, he presented a handful and the state had approved Kenmore Court. So I'm here tonight to ask the board to approve a new private way. It will not be a town road, it'll be a private way for Mr. Healy's new subdivided property, which will be known as 1 Kenmore Court, Unit A and Unit B.
Any questions for Chief Pizon? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the change from 7 Oak Street to 1 Kenmore Court, Unit A and Unit B in Exeter, New Hampshire.
Mr. Chair, if I could clarify.
I'm sorry.
So it's 7 Oak Street is going to remain.
I'm sorry.
That's the front property that'll still be right on Oak Street. It'll be the properties that are behind 7 Oak Street that will have this new designation.
Understood. Scratch that. Then I would accept a motion to rename the 2-unit lot on map 63, lot 221 to 1 Kenmore Court, Unit A and Unit B in Exeter, New Hampshire.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectman Brown?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief Pizon.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Mr. Dean.
Just a brief report. I was able to attend an Arbor Day event on June 3rd at the Gilman Pavilion last week. And thank you to Eileen Flockhart for inviting inviting me along to that. It was a good event, and I was able to read the proclamation that the board approved at your last meeting. Also was able to attend the Memorial Day parade with you all, and just wanted to give my thanks to the parade organizers who did a great job with that. And then internally, we're continuing to work on our CIP, reviewing requests, working with the departments on their requests. I did also meet with, I wanted to let the board know, Tony Calandrello came to my office on Friday, and we met about, there is a fund that the Arts Committee the old Arts Committee had, and it has about $1,700 in it. And Mr. Calandrello expressed some interest in maybe renaming that to the Arts and Culture Commission. So that's something for another day, but he is aware of that particular fund that exists. I wanted to give my thanks to Susan Belageron, who was our longtime office manager over in the fire department. She retired as of May 31st, and she put in 37 great years with the town, and she'll be missed. She did a great job for us. So wanted to say thank you to Susan. And we have a maintenance sewer replacement project that's starting next week at Town Hall. So if you see people coming in and out of that area, that's what that is. And then my only other comment was the legislative season is wrapping up. I'm probably handing this off to Julie, but we're finally getting to the end of the budget season. So unfortunately, our SAG projects, including the wastewater treatment facility, are still not included in the budget at this point, but we're continuing to press on and hoping that they might get there, but I wouldn't expect it to happen at this point. And that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. With that, we'll segue to Select Board Committee reports. And Selectwoman Gilman, I'll start with you, and you can also give us any updates from the state.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no committee reports. I'm light on the first and last weeks of each month, so and then it all gets compacted into the middle of the month. We did have a couple marathon days at the State House up at the Bedford Sportsplex. We passed some good things, mostly things I didn't like and I don't think would benefit people in this town. But there is the next series that's happening. What we voted on last Thursday and Friday were Senate bills. And the next step is for us to vote on House bills that were amended by the Senate. So that's happening February 10th. And we have 79 bills to go through on one day. I don't know how fast it will go, but I did want to show you where you can find out this information, what's going to happen when, and what's already happened as far as bills that have been passed and are either going to or have gone to the governor's desk. So if I can share my screen, I will try to do this quickly. Or not. Okay, let me see. Okay, if you go to the New Hampshire General Court website, and this thing is in my way. Sorry. There it is. If you go to the New Hampshire, the General Court website, which is gencourt.state.nh.us, and you scroll down to the very bottom under resources, you can see the current calendar that we're going to be looking at on Thursday. And that's number 27. And it shows you everything that we're going to be looking at after the deadlines. And they're just listed by number with just the title. And if the title interests you, then you can search that name on the website. The other thing that I wanted to show you is the in the same area of the resources is the chaptered final chaptered. Hey, 2021 chaptered final version. So these are the bills that have already been passed through both House and Senate, and frankly, I'm not sure if the governor hasn't looked at them yet. But you can click on the numbers here. So far, we've only had 59 in their final version. And there's all sorts of things in here: timber harvesting, student assessment information. You can just click on these numbers that look interesting to you, and the bill will come up in its final version as it has been either amended by the House or Senate or just passed. So I would ask everyone, you still have time before Thursday to take a look at these things under the resources on the General Court website, and give us a call. And that is it. And how do I stop sharing my screen? There it is.
Mr. Dean can help you there.
Now I got it.
Thank you, Selectwoman Gilman, for both updates. Selectman Brown.
Yep, so since we last met, the Communications Committee, Bob Glowacki met with, I think he had a demo from Rave. Maybe we're talking about replacing the town app with chatbot potentially. So he's talking to the fire department, and I'm not sure if police as well, I think, but yeah, so Bob has the torch running for communications towards looking at a longer term replacement of the app with chatbot. And then Facilities Advisory Committee, the chair was out, so it was run by Peter Lennon. And so it was mainly a work session discussing how Facilities Advisory should work. Yeah, and if you have never attended a meeting chaired by Mr. Peter Lennon, you're missing out. So it was very lively and vibrant setting. So that's it.
Thank you, Selectman Brown. Selectwoman Cowan.
Yes, I had a planning board meeting where we elected our officers, and then we heard two cases. We heard we approved a conditional use permit for the Brian Grisette property. That is over off of, I guess, Front Street. And then we also heard the beginning of a yield plan for a proposed 12-lot single-family open space subdivision. And that is over on Watson Road. There is a site walk tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and I am looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you. And I had the Sustainability Committee on June 1st, and Dave walked through just everything that he's done to finalize submission of the grant that he and Julie LeBranch have been working on through the last year. The Sustainability Committee voted to, at some point, make a recommendation to the Select Board to consider banning single-use plastics. And finally, they voted to recommend to the town manager that he include in the budget this year funding for a full-time sustainability coordinator. And that was my committee report. So moving forward, we had several pieces of correspondence relative to Swayze Park. And Mr. Dean, I think we've kind of successfully filled up the June 21st Select Board meeting, but perhaps in early July, and that would give us some time to reach out to them. I'd like to maybe invite the Swayze Park trustees to come on a Select Board meeting to talk about next steps with Swayze Park. So
we can reach out, or however you want to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. We can talk about that. Okay. And then the other piece of correspondence was from the Exeter Farms Homeowners Association, notifying town and department staff of their newly elected board of directors for 2021-22. So reviewing the calendar, as we said, next Monday is an added meeting, June 14th. We will also meet on June 21st. And I think next Monday, since summertime's coming, for the sake of the board schedules, maybe we can tackle July and maybe into early August, just to give folks a head start in planning. We met non-publicly at 6:30. So Unless there are any comments or further discussion from the board, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next Monday. Be well.
Good night, all.